Just to do a quick recap, so basically,
Hmm.
in APG, when the fault occurs, APG will the control will break. Control will try to look for the fault rule section. Fault rule section is the one where we attach. Usually, in fault rule, we attach assign message policy. In those policies, we will set the fault response payload where we have more meaningful error message. Okay, status code and everything, and any other header, whatever we have to set, we will set it. Okay, and then it will provide that response to consumer.
Okay.
And if the fault handling section is not there and fault occurs, APG will provide you the default fault, whatever APG has the default message and all those stuff. APG will provide that. Okay, so APG send that. So it will be APG whatever its own fault structure. APG has its own fault structure, whatever that will
Hmm.
be sent to consumer. Okay.
Okay.
Now, so in the fault rules, APG in APG we can have multiple fault rule. Usually in fault rule we will have condition. Okay, so in the condition, so if the fault comes, APG will check for certain condition. Okay, if on and whichever condition matches, APG will execute that fault rule. Now in the condition APG, when the fault occurs, right? When the fault occurs, in APG there is a variable called fault dot name. That variable will be automatically set. Okay, so
Hmm.
in is any kind of error comes, so fault dot name will be automatically set. And what we can do is we can put that fault dot name in conditions. So for example, if fault dot name source unavailable, fault dot name failed to resolve API key, or invalid access token, or whatever, right? So there is some predefined values for different kind of errors. Okay, so we
Hmm.
can put it there, and APG will then execute the fault rule one by one. Now in APG, remember that uh, in APG, all the everywhere when you have APG logic, route rule, flow, whatever, it is executed top to down. Okay, from top to down it will execute. But fault rule is the only section, and that too in the proxy endpoint. Remember, in the
Hmm.
proxy endpoint, if we have fault rule will be executed from bottom to up. So whichever fault rule is in
Okay.
the bottom, it will be executed first, and other will be top. So that is the only section in APG that is executed from bottom to up. That is
Okay.
for I don't know why it is this thing, but it is
Hmm.
the only section. In the target endpoint, if you have fault rule, that will be top to down only. Okay, in the target endpoint, if you have fault rule, that is top to down. But in proxy endpoint, if you have multiple fault rule, it will from bottom to up.
1 minute. 1 minute. Target endpoint means that is the SOR point, right? And
No,
what
the,
is
the target endpoint, right? Then the proxy endpoint target point section we have, right?
I'm just trying to recollect target endpoint and proxy endpoint. What's the difference? I'm just for.
No, no, proxy endpoint is where you define the APG specific thing, right? Your proxy base path and all those stuff, right? And target is you have backend target and all those stuff, right? You have two sections in the APG, as you can see, two sections.
uh,
This is a proxy endpoint, right? And this is the target
Proxy.
endpoint, pre-flow and everything, right? You have.
Got. Yeah, yeah.
So that's
Remembered,
section. So you can put
Yes,
a
yes.
fault tool here also in this section also, and in the
Uh,
target endpoint section also where we have
okay, okay.
target connection, all those things are different. Okay, so
Okay,
that's why.
okay.
Okay, so that's why. So in target endpoint, if you have fault tools, multiple fault tool with condition, it will top to down, but in
Okay,
proxy
but
endpoint,
in
it will be
proxy
bottom to
endpoint is
up,
down, bottom to up. Okay.
bottom to up. Okay, in the fault tool
Mm-hmm,
section.
okay.
So that's what. Okay, so this thing. Okay, so here, so when you are defining that conditions, first make sure those conditions are not overlapping, right? Those are exclusive. So condition one
Mm,
and nothing to condition two. And if there is a condition which overlap, or this condition have where can be true for multiple scenarios, so make sure more restrictive conditions or more specific conditions in the bottom, and more open kind of conditions is in the top, right there. Okay,
okay.
so that
Mm,
if you want to throw this kind of error in get of this, then all this. Okay, like this. Okay,
mm,
now so this thing, now in APG there is section called default fault tool. Okay, so
mm,
the default fault tool, in the default fault rule is a section. Okay, so if if by default uh, none of the fault rules are executing. Okay, if none of
mm,
the fault rule match, okay, then if you can define default fault rule. So default fault rule is executed when none of the fault rules are matching. Okay, so like this.
mm,
Now in
mm,
default fault rule there is a field or there is a flag called always enforce. Okay,
mm,
So you can set this as a true. So if you set always enforce as true, then what happens is even if one of the fault rules are executed, after that fault rule, APG will execute the default fault rule section. Okay, that can happen. So what usually we do is, as a best practice, as a or standard, what you do is, in the fault rule you will define, in the fault rule, what you do, the last fault rule, right, the last fault rule which is in the top, right, because the bottom to up, the fault rule which is in the top, that fault rule will not have any condition. So that is like a catch all. So if none of the fault rule are matching, you will set some whatever 500 status message with, internal server error, whatever, right, so that you can define. After that, if you want to prepare error log, right, for logging purpose, you want to set some log error, whatever logging, right, error logging, or if you want to set any error header, right, some header for the error logging, or if you want to put any custom data in analytics, some error data, if you want to put some custom data in analytics, right, error id, whatever, something in analytics, those kind of common, common error policies, you can put it in the default fault rule, so that, error message will be set in some other fault rule. Okay, it can be that specific one, or the last one where there is no condition, so it is last one, so generic error message. And then any other, sometimes you have to set some header or some kind of analytics or some, logging payload preparation, whatever, right, so that that thing you can do it in the default fault rule session. Okay, so that you can do.
mm,
So that's what usually we do. Okay, and we set always enforces true. So this is the standard practice. Okay,
mm,
now, so we checked about fault rules, what are the fault rules, how to, uh, how are they executed, everything. Now the next question, how are they initiated, right, how a fault rule it gets initiated, right. So when a policy fails, okay, so in every policy there is a field called continue on error. By default this is always false. So every policy there is a, attribute called continue on error. Okay, by default it is always false. Okay, every policy it is there. So when the policy fails and this always continue on error is false, okay, then obviously APG will, go to fault rule. APG will initiate a fault. Second is like in the JavaScript code also, the custom JavaScript code. Okay, right, a
mm,
custom JavaScript, any error comes, any, for example, you are JSON.parse, right, you are doing JSON.parse, that is not a proper JSON or something, right, or some, any kind of unhandled exception on, JavaScript code or Java
mm.
code, whatever, right. In the
Okay.
custom code, if any unhandled exception comes, that also. Okay, and so that is there. So those kind of scenarios. So policy fail, basically any kind of policy failure. First, policy fail. Second is in the target, when you get a non-success response code. So in the target is giving you 4 access or 5 access. Okay, because 1 access anyway doesn't go, 2 access and 3 access are treated as a success scenario. Okay, in by APG by
Okay.
default 200 to 300. Okay, 200s and 300s are in success scenario. So 400s or 500 comes in the, um, this thing. Sorry. Now, so 200, 300 by default is success. Now if you, on certain condition, if you want to treat, say, for some, one of the 4 axis or 5 axis also in the success, for example, you want to treat, 401 as a success, or say
Mm,
404 as success, 403 as success, whatever you want to treat them as a success. Okay, then you can define this in the property called success code. In that case, if even if that status code comes from backend, APG will, uh, APG will, uh, what you say, APG will, this thing, not go to, uh, fault rule section. Okay, APG will execute the normal response policy. Okay, APG will execute the normal response policy and not to go to the fault rule section. Okay,
mm, mm.
and then there is another way, which is the, race fault policy. So race fault policy you can use here, and usually, sorry, give me 1 minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this raise fault policy usually is used to manually throw error. If you want to throw error, okay, on certain condition. So in this condition, so here in the example, as you can see, if query param dot let is not equal to null, query param dot long not equal to whatever, right? So in this query param are null something, okay. If these query parameters are null or something, then you can manually throw error. So you can use a raise fault policy, okay. So now
Okay.
raise fault policy is the policy, as I said, you can manually throw error. Now in the raise fault policy, there is one special thing is that in the raise fault policy itself, okay, you can set the error payload. The fault response section, there is a fault response section. You can set the error payload, you can set the headers or status code, whatever you can set in the raise fault policy itself. Okay, so usually uh, for the raise fault policy, if you are using a raise fault policy, we don't write a fault rule for that, because in the raise fault policy itself you can set the error payload and error content and header whatever, right? So that's why apg code will still go to fault rule. So apg code will go to fault rule. However, we do not provide any fault handling section for this raise fault, because the raise fault is automatically setting the same thing that you want in the fault rule, correct? You don't need to use any separate assign message or other thing, okay.
Yeah.
So that's why you don't use it. So raise fault policy is the third way to handle this thing. Now usually what we do in apg, we right now in our api, right, in api, after the base path, right, after the base path, if someone gives another any wrong path, even if anyone gives a wrong path, okay, then what happens in apg, we will not stop it. So we have defined the flows, right? We have get categories and everything, all the flows are
Huh.
there, right? But the thing is that if someone gives a wrong path after the base path, so after your retail v1 whatever, someone gives you a wrong thing, apg by default will not block it. apg by default will
Okay.
still allow it to go it to backend. Now if the backend has handled, backend provides you a 404 error, right? Backend
Huh.
provides you 404, then you will forward to consumer. However, we don't want to do that. We don't want any consumer, if that, flow is not defined, right? If the flow is
Mm,
not defined by us, then we don't want the control to go to the backend, right? Because that will
mm,
not the best way, right? It can be problem,
mm, mm,
because backend, sorry, so backend can be exposed, or someone trying to hack any endpoint which is not meant for that consumption, right? Something like that, right? So that's
mm,
why what we do is, we, at the end of all the condition flows, at the end of once all the conditional flows are added, right, at the bottom of that we add another flow which will not have any condition. So all the flow have a condition, correct? The path suffix, this verb is this, like, some all the
mm,
flows will have a
mm,
condition. But then last flow, we will add one last flow. In that flow we do not put any condition, because that is like if none of them are matching, in that last flow we just simply add a raise fault policy. That raise fault policy will throw a 404 status code, right? 404 not found, okay, like this, okay.
mm,
So that we will know this, if none of them are matching, then we throw 404 resource not found. So client will it, so we are protecting our backend. So if it is not exposed by apg, we will not let it go, right? So that's why,
mm,
okay. So that is like a 404 pattern. So like last flow, we have 404, it will not have any condition, because if none of them are matching anyways, that is the bottom, it will execute in the last. So if none of them are matching, you give 404, okay.
yeah.
So in that lab we will do all
Mm,
three kind of, we will do error
okay.
writing, we'll do validate input, and then we'll also do 404, all kind of things we will do in this lab, okay. So lab
Okay.
number 2 will do all these things, okay. So
Okay.
anyways, first let's do lab number 9, right? Yeah, let me close all this. So let's do lab number 9 first.
1 minute. Let me log in.
Mhm. You can also log into APG and open
Yeah.
your lab number 9.
Lab 9. Shared flows. Okay. Okay. Done. Open. So you said first shared flows. What we'll do is we will take the KVM policy and apply it to. Uh, So for shared flow, how do we first create a shared flow?
Correct. So we will see that. So first we will get a
Let's
share
see that.
flow.
Okay.
So here for share flow, whatever two policies we added, right? We had one
Hmm.
policy to read from KVM, other policy was to
Hmm.
set the basic auth. Correct. Those two policies we did.
Yes.
So
Yes.
now go to on the left side in the develop there is a share flows. Okay. So go to develop share flows.
Yes.
Let me delete these share flows ones. So here now, as you can see, there is no trace and all those stuff, right? You and there is
Hmm.
no, all those trace and all because obviously you cannot
Yeah.
call it because you cannot call it. There is no trace here. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now go to develop here. In develop, you can see there is not much section, right? Because it is only
Hmm.
set of policies, right? So you just add set of
Hmm.
policy one after other. So here you just add first policy. So if you remember, our first policy was read from KVM. So there was KVM hyphen get credentials, right? So this KVM I do plus step. In the plus step, key value map will be section number 3, section 3 mediation. It is the last policy of section number 3. Right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Key value map. Click on that and replace the display name.
Okay. Done.
Okay, so that replace the display name. So after that, again we have to replace this KVM because obviously this is having a lot of data which we don't want, and all the initial entries put whatever we don't put. We only need two get operation. One was backend ID and password. Correct? We had the backend ID and the password. So here, copy. Let me copy this XML key value operation XML. So let me first copy that. Okay, and then so given the KVM XML, so replace the XML first.
Okay. Save. Should I save it?
Not now. We have to
No.
just
No.
make in the line number one. If you scroll right, line number one,
Uh huh.
in the map
Uh huh.
identifier you see map identifier, right?
Yes.
So in the map identifier, just add you have to add your training ID that because with KVM names we added our when we get key value maps we added our training ID. So you have to add your training ID in the map identifier. Okay.
Okay.
So let me know once you are.
Yeah. Done. Now save.
Just one. So we have to add the second policy also. If you want to save, you
Okay.
can save it in between. If you want, you can just save it. Anyways.
Save as new revision only. No.
Uh, Sorry.
It's
Yeah,
coming.
no,
Save as new revision.
no, it is. You can just save it. I think it is division first. We are not doing anything. You just only map identifier you added, correct? Map identifier.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just save that only. The save button will be there. So just save.
Yeah. Once I click on save, it is coming. You have deleted or renamed an item. This change and all other changes to the current revision will be saved as a new revision.
Did you add the correct place? What? Can you share your screen, please?
Okay, able to see my screen?
Uh, yeah, I can see. KVM.
Okay.
Get no. I think you did not add this policy. KVM name. Go to default. Click on the. There is a tab. There is a small tab on the left side. Can you click on the small tab on the XML? On the XML in the XML there is a small tab. Yeah, click on that. Um, Click on this tab. Second tab. I think
Policy.
you no you. That's why you did not click on the left side. Click on default. On the right side there is a default. Shared flows default on the
Yeah, I
left panel. Left
acha
panel. Right.
left. Okay, okay.
KVM get credential. It is get credentials or get credentials. It was S. I think you did not copy correctly. Did you copy from this thing?
Yeah, I copied from the chat only.
No, I think you did not copy correctly. You can see I have credentials and you only had credential.
KVM get credentials.
Yeah, here you
Okay,
can see the name. You can see the name is line number 4. Name is get credential, not get credentials.
okay.
Okay, no problem. So just update that policy name to credentials. That is fine. Right? Click on save now. Anyways, click on save.
Save as new revision.
Okay, save as new revision anyways because you have updated. Doesn't really matter. Now revision 2.
Okay.
Okay, so that is fine. All right. Uh, so this is okay now. Okay, that is fine. That is fine. So you can now click on default again. Click on that default on the left side. Yeah. Now again we will do a plus step. So you can stop sharing. Let me
Okay.
make myself presenter. Then okay. So now we will add the second policy that was basic authentication policy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that is the BA add auth header, basic authentication add auth header policy. Okay, BA add auth header.
Mm.
Let me ping you in the chat. So this is the name. Okay. So BA add auth header, that is the name of the policy. So you can copy from here and then do a plus step. Click on default here. Your default is selected here, right? Make sure the default is selected so that you can see this plus step button, right?
Last step button I can see. Okay, you just selected default only. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So that is plus step button is visible to you, right?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay. Then here click on plus step.
Mm-hmm.
And basic authentication is the first policy in security, right? So click on that
Yeah.
basic authentication and
Mm.
replace the display name here. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and then click on add.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So here this policy also.
Yes, in this policy,
Mm,
what to remove?
and then here this policy also XML, we have to replace the XML, right? Because we have to use our
Mm.
variables that we use. So this
Mm.
is the XML. So basic authentication one. Let me copy.
Mm. Done.
Done, right?
Mm.
Then click on save.
Mm.
Then do the deployment, deploy on dev. Click on deployment, deploy on dev.
Mm. Okay, done.
Then verified, right? Yeah, it is verified. Now let's go to the proxy. We will add the proxy. So, and yeah, click on your proxy.
Mm-hmm.
Now here as we do first save as a new revision.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see. So then here click on develop here. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have to click on the patch call, right? The patch we had the policy update product by ID. You see this patch one. Click on the patch one.
Okay, patch update product by ID.
Correct.
Okay.
You see there's two policies. When you click on patch, those two policies should
Yes.
be there, right? Last time we did it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
one by one we will detach. So click
Okay.
on this yeah,
Cross.
red color cross sign. One by
Uh,
one, detach both of them one by one. Okay.
done.
And then let me give you the name of the we will add the flow callout policy, right? So
Hmm.
we'll add the flow callout policy. So let me give you the name. FC backend credentials, that is the name of the policy, flow callout policy name. Okay, so this is the name of the policy. Okay, go to last.
Mm-hmm.
In the bottom you see flow callout
Flow
policy,
call
right?
out.
Yeah, so click on that first. Click on the
Hmm.
flow callout first,
Hmm.
replace the display name.
Hmm.
And then there is a shared flow drop down. In the drop down you will find your policy, right? In the drop down, sorry, your shared flow will be there. So select your shared flow from the drop down. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
so and then click on add.
Mm-hmm.
And then uh,
Save.
yeah, and then deploy on yeah, deploy this.
Okay. Was deployed.
So it is deployed, right? This one.
Yeah.
So now let's do the trace here and start the trace. And then yeah, start the trace.
Hmm.
And then this thing after that on that postman open the patch one, you will have the patch in that previous one of the tabs here, right? Like this, it will be there in the tabs. Okay, patch call.
The URL would be like a
The patch
patch.
call is there, right? You open the
Yeah,
patch
yeah, yeah.
call.
Patch. Yeah.
Now click on body here, open the patch call, click on body.
Uh,
In the body just change the value, right? 9 point something, so I'm 9.6
it's
is there.
9.5 is there. I'll just move it to
Yeah,
9.6.
yeah, yeah, anything.
Okay.